Good morning guys, day 14 of my Veganuary vlog, and I'm going to continue on with a similar theme from yesterday. So yesterday I covered the dairy industry and the inherent issues around dairy production. Today I'm going to talk about the egg industry and the inherent issues with egg production, because that's another thing that a lot of people seem to struggle with. The thought of giving up eggs is quite challenging for a lot of people. It's a big part of their diet. A lot of people have eggs for breakfast and use eggs in their cooking and, make quiches and all sorts of things with eggs. And so, practically people are concerned about how they're going to replace that in their diet and why would they in the first place. So, first of all, eggs aren't a healthy food. They're really high in saturated fat, they're really high in cholesterol. From what I understand, eggs legally can't actually be labelled as healthy or nutritious, and that's because they're not. Eggs aren't a natural food source for a human. They're a part of the chicken's reproductive tract, and so they're designed to be part of the baby making creation process. And so that's the actual point of an egg in the first place. It's not there for us to, think that we need it as protein or some sort of magical food for our human body. The egg production industry has got a lot of inherent issues with it. So I have in the past worked closely with an egg farmer who had one of the highest accredited levels possible for free-range egg farming in Australia. So the RSPCA highest accreditation for free-range farming systems. And he did an amazing job of looking after his chickens. The chickens' welfare standards on that farm were incredible compared to the norm. They were on big pastures on really good quality improved soils. They were out in the sunshine, they were scratching around in the dirt, they had access to caravans for shelter and so that they could roost and express some of their natural behaviours. But even in that system there was still inherent issues with the whole egg production industry. One of those problems was the age at which egg production declines. So chickens in the chicken farming industry produce an egg almost every day, and at some point in their life that starts to drop off, and so then they become no longer economically viable. So it's not profitable to keep that chicken, and so the chickens have to be culled and restocked with new young layer hens. So this farmer, a friend of mine, at the end of the chicken's productive life, so I think it was under 2 years of age, he would have to go out in the middle of the night and kill all of the chickens, throw them in a compost heap, and then restock them with new young fresh layer hens. And that was a really traumatic process for him. You could see how emotional he was when he talked about that. And so that's something that farmers have to do if they're in the egg production system, and that's a trauma that they've got to deal with, and something that if you're buying eggs, someone else has to do that job. And personally I don't think that that's fair to ask that of a person. The other aspect of the chicken farming industry, which is an inherent issue, is the waste of the male hens. So male chickens don't lay eggs, and so therefore they don't have any valuable use in the chicken industry. So when the eggs are hatched into chickens in the hatchery, there's a conveyor belt system. There's people sitting there sexing the babies. So they're day-old babies. They go through the conveyor belt. People sex them, and the female eggs go into the restocking pile. The male eggs get thrown down a kind of tube type system and ground up. They're killed, so they're discarded at day old. Their life is considered to be of no value for us. And that's pretty horrible when you think about it, that just because an animal that's been born has no economic value, we kill it. Not that palatable really, is it? And they're just two things that when you're looking at an intensive system, there's not really any way around that. So then people say, oh well, you know, why don't you keep your own chickens, why don't you eat their eggs? Personally for me, I don't anymore, because I don't want to be eating the saturated fat and the cholesterol that I don't consider healthy or a natural part of our diet. We take a B12 supplement. I don't consider eggs to be a necessary, B12 supplement. I've talked about that in an earlier video as well, the Meet the Micros one, and then the B12 video that followed on from that. And even with the backyard sort of poultry farming system, there's inherent issues as well. Not all backyard poultry farmers keep their chickens in humane conditions. They're not all really well looked after. The males are still a waste problem. You know, not everyone wants roosters. They're noisy. They have no economic value, really. They're wonderful in a flock. They look after the ladies so well. They find all the insects and the bugs in the soil, and they call the ladies over, and then they stand back and let them eat. It's a beautiful relationship. If you've ever had chickens with a rooster around and you sort of watch how they interact, it's a really lovely natural process. But obviously, when there's eggs, about 50% of those are going to be roosters, and nobody wants a flock that's 50% roosters, 50% hens. And so again, there's an inherent waste issue, even if you're looking at a backyard poultry system. So that's my reasons for not eating eggs. I would encourage you to do your own research, look into that, and start thinking about, maybe eggs aren't a necessary part of my diet. Maybe they're actually an unhealthy part of my diet. And what can I do about replacing those? Well, there's lots of things you can do. You know, if you eat eggs for breakfast, maybe think about trying some scrambled tofu instead, or have some avocado on toast, or maybe a porridge or a smoothie bowl, which is one of my favorites. You know, I demonstrated in an earlier video how to make a smoothie bowl, and a smoothie or a smoothie bowl or a fruit salad is something that I eat every day for breakfast. When you're looking at baking, you can use a chia or a flax egg in place of an egg in your baking. So if you want to make cakes or muffins or something like that, you just grind up a tablespoon of flax seeds or chia seeds. You let that soak with 2.5 tablespoons of water for about 5 minutes, and once it's gelled, you can use it like you would an egg in your baking. Even meringue. You can make meringue with the aquafaba, which is the brine out of a chickpea can. It works in the same way as egg white does. If you whiz it up and then add your sugar and then bake it, you end up with a meringue. So if that's one of your favorite things, then again, there's an easy replacement for it. And you're using a waste product out of a can of chickpeas instead of creating a male chicken waste product that gets killed at day old. So there's the choices, people. Plant-based is so much more humane. It's so much healthier for you. You're going to be aligning with the deep compassion and values that we're all born with, and once you start exploring that, you'll realize how connected in with that we all are. So again, I encourage you to start thinking about your options, start considering the alternatives. You can Google anything these days. You know, if you're baking something and you can't remember how to replace an egg in your baking, just Google it, and it's easy to find that information. There you go. Think about giving up eggs, people. There's always going to be problems with egg production. Think about the alternatives. Try something new for breakfast tomorrow if you're one of those people that has eggs for breakfast, and see how that feels for you.